Hello, everyone, and welcome to Introduction to Zotero. Don't be a research zombie. My name is Caitlin Hennessy, and I'm the program coordinator here at the Global Campus, specifically for Global Connections. Tonight, as most of you are using, feel free to ask questions or discuss in the chat box throughout the presentation. Lorena will also be taking questions at the very end. This is a somewhat interactive presentation, so if you do have a dual monitor, you're welcome to bring up Zotero as you are hearing how to navigate the system and ask questions that way too. There will also be a follow-up presentation with more in-depth information about Zotero next week on Wednesday as well. It's called Application to Zotero, and I'll put the link to register for that in the chat box. If you have any technical difficulties, please feel free to let me know, and I'll help you as best I can via chat. And now I'm going to turn it over to Lorena. Thank you.
Excellent. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So I'm Lorena English, and I'm a librarian here at WSU, and I usually work with the social sciences, political science, criminal justice, sociology, sports studies, and I also do a little bit of work with theater and dance. But one of my passions is sort of this technology stuff. I like to do technology training, and for the past 8 years or so, I've been teaching people how to use Zotero, and I've been teaching undergraduates and honor students and graduate students and even the occasional faculty member. And I just have gotten so many positive responses from this. And I really, the changes that Zotero has made in the last couple of years has made it such a powerful tool for distance students, global campus students, that I really wanted to kind of provide an opportunity for people to be exposed to it. So if you have questions, I'll hopefully give you a chance to ask them. And you can also see that my email is right up on the screen, oenglish@wsu.edu. And I'm also available on social media. I'm usually WSU Lorena on Twitter and on Skype and Hangouts, Google Chat, etc. So let's kind of take it from here. Let's see. There we are. So I've got a question for you two, and what I'm interested in is how do you keep track of sources? So I've got some options. I use a Word document to keep track of references. I use an Excel spreadsheet. I email everything to myself. I write it all down on scraps of paper and even the palm of my hand. That was me when I was in college, or all of the above, or I suppose none of the above. So in the chat window, why don't you go ahead and tell me how you keep track of references and sources that you're using in papers that you're writing. So let's see what everyone says. Hey, Carrie's here. Carrie is an option A person, okay? Ricky uses printouts, then she uses the reference management software in Word, okay? And Andrew uses Word as well. Okay, so what we're going to do now, let's see if is actually talk about one of the issues that can happen. Because what tends to happen is that we collect our sources kind of on a project-by-project basis. And so, you're writing a paper for political science, and you do all the work for it. You kind of organize everything in one page in your Word document. And then after the project's over, that paper gets filed, and it's gone. And so what happens is the work that you do for individual classes gets siloed, and it can be really difficult to take work that you've done before and realize how valuable it can be for work that you're going to do in the future. So we're going to see that Zotero enables you to actually get more efficient use out of the research that you've done, find patterns and useful articles that you've did for classes that you might have taken a year ago, and basically break out of these silos and create a database of all the information that's valuable to you, that's searchable, that's findable, and that is yours to use forever. So let's kind of look at some of the things that happen. Oops, let me go back here. So let's think about the problems. The problem is that the way we do research now is different from the way that I did research when I was in college. You're keeping track of websites, you're looking at scholarly articles, you're looking at gray literature, which might be say a report from a non-government agency, or books, and you're dealing with all of those sorts of things, and they all have different sorts of bibliographic data, and they're complex. So you can use traditional reference management software like EndNote, but it's very pricey, and it can have a bit of a learning curve. Another issue is that academic work is often collaborative, but most reference management solutions are not, or at least not very, although that's really starting to change. But still, collaboration can be a problem. We also want to build up a library of references and papers to have on hand to use, including after you graduate. You know, if you're going to a career, say if you're going to become a teacher, if you're going into a career where you're going to continue to do research or you have to do professional development, you know, you want to have access to the stuff that you found when you were in college. And finally, we want something that's going to serve multiple functions. We want it to keep track of our references and spit out something in proper APA style. We want something that will help us find good articles. We want something that will help us access good articles, suggest good articles, and collaborate with people. So lots of things together. So what do we do? Oops, I'll go back again. We're going to see how Zotero can help us solve all of those problems. And what I'm going to do now is we're going to go ahead and merge off of my PowerPoint, and we're going to start going online. So I'm going to go and minimize the PowerPoint. Let's get rid of that for now. We'll come back to it. And I'm going to open up Firefox. Does everyone see Firefox on the screen? I keep on asking this because I've had issues in the past where people didn't see what I was showing. But it looks like everyone's seeing Firefox. Everyone seeing Firefox? Okay, so the first thing I want to say is that Zotero is not only something that can be used in Firefox. One of the things I like about it is that it works with all browsers. Mostly it works with Safari and Chrome and Firefox, but if you use Edge or Internet Explorer or some of the other alternatives, you can also use Zotero through the Zotero bookmarklet or through the online version of Zotero. But we're going to go ahead and use it on Firefox now because it's the easiest way to kind of see it all in one place. So let's go ahead and get started. What I want to do is I'm going to go over to the Zotero webpage, and I can just do a Google search for Zotero. Zotero is from an Albanian word that means mastery. And you can see here we are on the page, and I'm just going to show you a few things. And some of the things we'll come back and look at when we have our next session, when we look at the online version of Zotero. But what I really want to point out is the documentation. Because Zotero has some really nice documentation. It has screencast tutorials that actually are short videos that you can watch to see how something is happening. If I go back to the previous page, I can see that there's a lot of useful information here about using Zotero, and they give us a combination of text and screencasts and screenshots, etc. So it's very helpful for me for learning how to use it. In addition to the information that's on Zotero's homepage, one of the things that I found was that Zotero's homepage didn't always answer the questions that I had. So I actually created my own library guide that we're going to kind of come back to and look at in a little bit that has additional information on working with Zotero, but we'll see that shortly. Let's go ahead and download Zotero. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this and click on the Download Now button, and it knows that I'm in Firefox and it knows that I'm on a PC, so I'm going to choose Zotero for Firefox. And you can see I've got a little install button here, and I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to install it. And I have to restart my Firefox, and you can see we'll see a blank screen now, so let me pop up that PowerPoint again for you. But pretty soon, oops, I'm terrible with this PowerPoint, aren't I? Pretty soon, there we are. Okay, and you'll notice the screen looks exactly the same, but in the corner, we have this little Z, and that's going to be where Zotero is. So let's see how that looks. I'm going to click on the Z, and you can see here I have kind of an overlay, and notice I can size it. So I'm going to make it pretty big because that's a little bit easier to see right now. And you can see that it's divided into 3 columns. I have my library, and I have, which is sort of like my organizing column. And then I have the middle column, which is what's in my library. And then if I go ahead and click on this thing that got auto-downloaded, you'll see that my 3rd column is actually the bibliographic data for it. And you'll notice that if I want, I can make this a little bit bigger, so I can kind of take advantage of the fact that I have a really nice wide screen, and that makes things a little bit easier. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at what Zotero does. The first thing I want to do is I want to create a collection for us. So I'm going to go to my library, and I'm going to create a new collection, and I'm going to call this Global Connections. And you can click on OK, and you can see there it is. And just to show you something, I'm going to create a second collection, and we'll call this one Gokugs. There we are. So we're gonna and we'll see why we have two collections in just a minute. And you can see I have my library. So I want to kind of talk about this very specifically at the very beginning because it confuses a lot of people. When I actually have my collections, these are virtual collections. They actually don't really exist. They're just sort of manifestations of my library. So for example, if I'm in Global Connections, let's go over here to our unfiled items and let's take Zotero Quick Start Guide, which you can see lives in my library, but is not in a collection, so shows up in unfiled. We're going to take this and we're going to file it. We'll put it in Global Connections. So you can see it's gone from unfiled now because it's been filed in a collection. So I'm going to take a look at this and I'm just going to add something over here. I'm going to go to the abstract and just put in a bunch of junk. And then I can go back and I can click in the middle and you can see there's my junk. And if I go look at it in my library, there's the junk there as well. And if I go ahead and copy it over to GoCougs, I'll see the same junk because what I was really doing is actually just working with the copy in my library. And that actually is really handy because if you're anything like me, sometimes you run into version control problems. And what this means is we're always working with the same copy, the same item, whether a book or an article, etc. So we don't have to worry about having multiple versions that are out there. We have the same item that's in a number of different places. And I emphasize that, spend a lot of time on it because sometimes that's confusing to people and it's a really nice sort of thing. All right, so now I'm going to move over to our global connections and that's where we're going to work for the rest of the session. So let's go ahead and look at the icons at the top. If we start over here on the far left, the first one is just another way of doing what we've already done, create a new collection. And we'll see that Zotero has multiple ways to do everything along the way. The next one has to do with creating a group and we'll learn more about that next session. We're going to see my action menu. And my action menu is basically actions that I do. And the most important one that we're going to talk about today is preferences. We'll come back to that in a minute. The next one is manual entry. We're going to see that Zotero works really well with databases and library catalogs and sites like Amazon or YouTube and the New York Times. But sometimes you have something from a database that it doesn't work with, or you have something that only exists in paper. And you can see, if you look at this, that we can see that Zotero actually works with a huge number of information formats, and that's really important to me. You know, I want something that will give me the appropriate bibliographic data fields for citing a congressional hearing versus a book, for citing a map, for citing a interview or a blog post, because these are all the kind of things that we do when we're doing research. So the next thing is going to be adding an item by an identifier, and this we're going to see is really handy. Books have ISBNs. Many journal articles have DOIs, digital object identifiers. And if you're in the medical field, a lot of medical articles have PMIDs, PubMed ID numbers. And we're going to see that these permanent, sort of these strings of letters and numbers that are permanent access to an article or a book are going to be a really good way to get things into Zotero. Now, my next item is my notes, and I love notes. Notes have an amazing organizing function. And I'm going to go ahead and create 2 notes at the very beginning. I'm assuming that I'm working on a project. When I create my collection names, they're usually based upon a theme, a project, a class, a paper, etc. So I'm going to go ahead, and the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a note that says outline. And you can see the first 10 or 15 characters actually show up in the outline. And here I can actually put in an outline of my project. And then I'm going to create a second standalone note, and I'm going to call this one my to-do list. So why did I put that period there before? Because when I alphabetize something, punctuation shows up before letters. That way my outline and my to-do list are always going to be at the top of my screen. And if you're anything like me, sometimes you have to put a project down. And you may come back to it in a week and you're like, you know, where was I? What did I do? And if at the end of every session you update your outline and you update your to-do list, you've actually got it right here all in one place. And this can be a really powerful tool. So we're starting to see that in addition to the citation function of Zotero, which everybody comes to it for, Zotero can really help you kind of work on project management as well. Okay, my paperclip you're going to see is basically how I add an attachment, and everything is grayed out right now, but you'll see that not only can I add PDFs, and I'll add them just like I would if I were sending somebody an email, but I can also at any moment add a snapshot of the web page that I'm on, and we'll do that shortly. This is our advanced search. And this is our basic search. And the thing we have to remember with basic search is basic search only works within the collection that you're in. So I'm only searching inside this collection. If I want to search my whole library, I either have to move to my library or I have to do an advanced search. All right, that's all we're going to do for now on this. And we're going to actually go and start setting up our Zotero so we can see how everything else works. So I'm going to go back to my action menu and I'm going to choose preferences. By the way, everything else here, let's go back and look at this. I have, I'll show you shortly that I have a library guide that goes through what all of these actually mean. Okay, so I'm going to move this over. There we are. This is my preference screen. And we're going to go through our preferences and set them all up. All right. First thing is user interface, always important. I have old eyes, so I'm going to make my stuff extra large, although, you know, it doesn't make it that much larger. Then I'm going to look at my miscellaneous. Automatically check for updated translators. Translators are the things that make Zotero automatically capture bibliographic data from library catalogs or databases or Amazon or the New York Times. So I definitely want to make sure I have updated translators. And if I find one that's broken, I want it to be reported automatically. This one, I actually tend to unclick because PDFs sometimes don't always work really well in Firefox, so I usually keep that unclicked. And if you're in Chrome or Safari, you won't even have that option at all. Unclicking it means that PDFs will usually, but not always, open up in my PDF management software, so, you know, Adobe Acrobat or something. Use Zotero for downloaded files. While most databases work with Zotero, there are a few that don't. But because the EndNote product has been around for so long, they might be optimized for EndNote. So RIS files are EndNote files, and they're sort of like any reference management program can read them. They're sort of like the ASCII or the text files of reference management software. So that means if necessary, if there isn't an option to download it the way I want to, I can download it if it says that you can download it for EndNote or through RIS. Automatically take snapshots when creating items from web pages. That's really handy. So have you ever been doing research and you find a web page and you know, you capture something from it and you go back in 2 weeks and it's like totally changed or gone? Everyone's probably done that, right? So what we do is we actually take a snapshot of a web page when we add it to Zotero. So we have it as it was at that time, and that can be really helpful. So I'll give you an example. Let's say we're coming up on a presidential change. And regardless of who becomes president, it's likely that some policies will change between the Obama administration and the new president's administration. So it might be kind of interesting to look at some of the executive web pages now and then compare the same executive web page, say, in 3 months and look at how language has changed. So that might be an example of how you'd really like to have a screenshot that is dated specifically to the time that you actually took that screenshot. Okay, automatically attach associated PDFs. We'll see how that works a little bit later. And I'm going to unclick this one right here that says automatically tag items with keywords and subject headings, because what that does is, you know, when you're searching in Search It, our library catalog, and you know those Library of Congress subject headings that say like voter participation or something else like that. What that would do is if I captured that book, those Library of Congress subject headings would show up down here as tags. And I don't like that because I think that tags, which is basically kind of like a term that you can associate with each individual item, should be based upon what's important to you. So I think you should create your own tags and not rely upon the kind of often opaque terms that come from databases and library search engines. All right, and we're going to basically talk about groups next week, but right now I'm going to unclick all of these. All right, we're going to go to sync. Now, I'm not going to actually do this because we don't really have enough time, but what I could do is I could go ahead and type in my Zotero credentials for my online Zotero account. And if I did that, I could then go over here and click on the sync button, and everything that was on the online version of my Zotero library would come and populate this version of my Zotero library. So this can be really handy because let's say I use a desktop at home because it's more ergonomically comfortable, and I use a laptop when I'm out and about. This way what I can do is I can add new research to my laptop, sync it to Zotero.org, and then when I get back home to my desktop, sync that. So I have the same thing in both places, really in all three places, and that can be kind of handy. So we'll actually see this next week when we look at Zotero Online. We're going to kind of ignore it for now. Okay, now we start getting into some of the tricky stuff because we're going to go look at search. And a lot of times people download Zotero because they hear that it's really amazing, and they start to use it and they get really frustrated because it's not doing the sorts of things that they thought it could do. This is one of the reasons why. You have to actually manually install the ability to search PDFs. And you can see that this is not the most clear language. So I'm going to click on Check for Installer, and this is going to install software that will enable me to search PDFs. Not all PDFs, not a PDF that is a picture, but a PDF that has been indexed so that if I do a Control F, I can search for a word. And I'm going to actually bump up the maximum number of characters to index, just in case I should ever put some really big file in my Zotero library. And note right now, nothing has been indexed. All right, export. We're going to talk a little bit more about this next session, but essentially, sometimes you're going to just basically drag a citation from Zotero into an email to send to your professor or somebody that you're collaborating with, or a Word document if you're writing a paper. So you can see that export basically lets me choose the citation style that I want to use. And I'm going to go ahead and choose APA 6th for now. So that would be my default citation style. Cite. All right, we're going to talk about the word processing stuff next week, but let's go ahead and set up different citation styles. So these are the citation styles that Zotero automatically downloads. And you can see there's quite a few, and most of these are going to be the ones that you're going to use. You know, there's MLA, there's APA, there's Chicago. But sometimes somebody may ask for a citation style that is not on this list. So you can see, do you see the little link here that says Get Additional Styles? I'm going to click on this, and that's going to open up another window. And I can choose a style. I'm going to look for CSE, which if I remember correctly, yes, is often used in the science years, Council of Science Editors. Notice if I mouse over it, I see what the citation looks like. That is actually really handy because I'm going to just be frank with you. Zotero is not always right with citations. No citation manager is. Using a reference management software program like Zotero or Mendeley or EndNote doesn't mean that you don't have to know your citation styles, because you do. They get it wrong sometimes. But as we all know, it's easier to edit than compose, and it's a lot easier to work with a base citation that's mostly right than to start doing it from scratch. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll choose this Council of Editors, this one right here. And I'm just going to click on it. And you can see it says, do you want to install it? And I'm like, yes, I do. And now when I close this window, here we can see CSE has been added here. And that's how I can add a citation style. And you'll notice the dates, because occasionally citation styles may change. MLA just changed this year. APA changed a few years ago. And citation styles may change, so we want to make sure that we're actually using the most updated one, and Zotero will update it automatically. All right, I'm going to go to Proxies. Now, Proxies, if you're using Zotero with Safari or Chrome, you won't actually see the screen, but if you're using with Firefox, you will. These really cause problems, especially for global campus students, because sometimes you're probably doing some work not in, your own house. You might be doing some work during your lunch hour at a place where you work that has a big corporate firewall. And these proxy little things can cause problems. So we are going to unclick these. These will not make any difference in anything that you do. Just make sure you unclick them. And you notice that I had to click them from the bottom up, because if I clicked them from the top, it wouldn't let me. So I have to click them from the bottom up. We are almost done. We just have two more really important things. First thing is backing our stuff up. And that's really important, because if you only have one computer, if you only have a laptop, if you choose not to use the online version of Zotero, or even if you do, what happens if somebody steals your computer? What happens if your 2-year-old niece is playing with your computer and erases everything on your laptop, and that sets up the sync to Zotero Online, and you just erased everything on Zotero Online as well? Or what happens if you get a new computer and you want to transfer everything over from one machine to another? So that's why backing up is important. So I'm going to go to Files and Folders, and I'm going to click on Show Data Directory. Let's move this over so y'all can see that. This is the inside of your Zotero folder. This contains all your PDFs. This contains bibliographic data. This contains the screenshots that you take, etc. So we're going to move up one level. You can see I moved up one level. There's Zotero. And to back it up, what I would do is I would plug in an external hard drive, and I would just right-click on Zotero, copy it, and then paste it over in the external hard drive. Two things. I have to make sure when I do this that Zotero is closed. You can see that this is actually a separate window. If I don't close Zotero, it will probably mess up my files. It will corrupt them, and I know that because I did it once, so I have experience. The second thing is you might be thinking to yourself, why do I have to back this up to an external hard drive? Why can't I back it up to OneDrive or Dropbox or something like that? And you can't. You can actually store individual PDFs in something like OneDrive or Dropbox, but if you try to back up your whole Zotero library, you will absolutely corrupt it. So you really want to go the external hard drive basis. And while you're backing up your Zotero library, you might think about backing up some other stuff that if you don't already have a backup system that might be really important that you want to make sure that you're not losing. So let's go ahead and close this for now. And we're going to go back and we're going to do our final thing. So we're going to go over here to our general. And what we want to do is we want to put in a URL that's going to tell databases that we are affiliated with Washington State University. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Search for Resolvers. And it knows, for me, it knows that I'm at Washington State University because I'm in the IP range. For you, it will probably give you a chance to type something in. And if not, I have a handout for you that will actually tell you what this is. But now I'm going to go look at these resolvers. Let's go ahead and find them here. I want this one, the one that's in capital letters. Do y'all see that? Washington State University, capital letters. And it's going to look like this. Give me the right one. It didn't. Let me try a different one. No, that's not right either. You know, this totally worked when I was doing this at home. Let's see. All right, I'm going to have to put it in manually. So I'm going to actually stop for a second and pop you all over to another one of my tabs. I'm going to go over and look at the library's homepage. Let's close our Zotero down. Zotero is always running, but I don't actually have to have the tab over. Let me show you our Zotero library guide. And here I am at the library homepage. I'm going to go to Subject and Resource Guides. And in the search box, I'm going to type in Zotero. I hope people aren't too confused by what I've just had to do. And I'm going to go look at Zotero at the WSU Libraries. And I'm going to go over here to our Global Connections tab. And you'll see that I have a Zotero handout. Does everybody see that? This is a PDF that you can download. Let's go ahead and open this. And what I want right now, you can see useful stuff, is I want this. This is our link resolver. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to close my screen now and go back over to Zotero. Let's go back over and find my window. Yes, everyone can see this. And I'm going to delete that WorldCat thing, and I'm going to paste in my link resolver. Or I could type it in. Whatever I do, I have to make sure that I've not made a typo in it, because this is really important. This is telling any database, regardless of where you are. You could be in England, you could be in Seattle, you could be in Tucson, that you're affiliated with WSU. All right, we're done with setup. I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. And if you are working on a Mac, you will not see the OK button. But now we are all ready to go. Any quick questions along the way or any comments? I'm looking at our little comments. Y'all are just overwhelmed, right? Don't worry. Everything that I tell you, there's information about it on Zotero's library guides and on my own library guide. So you don't have to worry about remembering everything I said. Plus, you can watch this video over and over and over again. So I'll wait a second more to give you all a chance to catch up. Okay, so now we've installed Zotero. Now what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to get stuff into Zotero. So the first way we're going to learn is to work with the PDFs that you already have on your computer. Because you guys, if you look at your computer and your desktop and on your computer, you probably have a million articles that you've downloaded. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to minimize my Firefox screen a little bit so you can see my desktop behind it. And you'll notice here's an article PDF. So I am going to take this article PDF and I'm going to drag it Oops, let's try this again. Take this article PDF and I'm going to drag it into my middle window. See? There it is. Okay, now I've worked with my PDF. I don't need that anymore. So I'm going to make my screen big again. And here I have a PDF. And I want you to notice that on this PDF, I have some basic information. One of these is that there's its name, and it has 10 pages, and it's indexed. That means that this is a PDF that is not a picture PDF. It is a searchable PDF, and Zotero has already indexed it, so I can search inside of it if I want. And we'll do that in a little bit to see how it works. And you'll notice that I can write a little note about it if I want. But that's not very helpful because it doesn't give me everything that I need. It doesn't give me the bibliographic data. I can't cite from it, etc. So we're going to try something to see if magic happens, because Zotero actually can work with Google Scholar. And if my PDF is in Google Scholar, I can convert it from a PDF to an actual Zotero record. So let's see if we're lucky. I'm going to right-click it, and I'm going to choose the Retrieve Metadata from PDF option. So what it does is it looks inside the PDF, and it pulls out the title, and it searches Google Scholar, and it found it. And notice what happened. Let's make this a little bit bigger so you all can see it. It captured my article. It went from, and if we kind of click on our little dot here, you can see there's my PDF. So let's take a look at this. All right, journal article, graphic novels and academic libraries from mouse to manga and beyond. Okay, I want to look a little bit more carefully because in this case, it actually brought it back the way I wanted. You know, you can see that it's in sentence case, but sometimes it might be, watch what I'm doing. I'm doing a transform case. Sometimes it might be in title case. And you don't want something in title case because y'all probably have had to write papers in different citation styles. And you know that if you use APA, for example, they want sentence case, but MLA wants title case. You can go from sentence case to title case, but you can't go from title case to sentence case because of having to capitalize things like proper names and proper nouns and abbreviations, etc. So if this had downloaded it in capital case, I would want to make sure that it's in sentence case. And notice that I might have to manually, in this case, change my F to capital from, and mouse is a title, so I need to capitalize that. And now I save it. And then here's the author. There they are right over here. And it looks like this is a journal. It's volume 52, issue 2, page sequence, got the date. It's got a URL for it. You know what it doesn't have here? It says I found it in Google Scholar, which technically I did. Library catalog is going to be the source for where you found it. Did you find it in MLA bibliography? Did you find it in JSTOR, etc. So we can go ahead with Google Scholar, or if I found it someplace else, I might put it in there. If you found it in the library catalog, you can just go ahead and, you can go ahead, if it's a book and you found it in the library catalog, you can go ahead and leave that blank because you only need to know the source for an article in most citation styles. All right, so look what we've done. We've actually gone for, we've put in our first item from a PDF that we actually had. Let's tidy this up a little bit. You see the name of that PDF? That's ugly. I want to fix it, so I'm going to right-click on it and I'm going to rename it. And now it has a much tidier title, which I like because it's a little bit easier to work with. Okay, so let's look at some other things about this. So here I've got all my bibliographic data, and that's going to be really important because this is what Zotero is going to pull from to give me citation data. So I want to check it to make sure it's accurate. If you've ever done carpentry or crochet, you know the mantra is measure twice, cut once, and that's certainly true with putting in bibliographic data. And one of the things we've already noticed is you have to account for the fact that one time you might be using MLA and another time you might be using APA. So you want to make sure you have every piece of information that you can possibly have. For example, I don't have a digital object identifier here. I probably would want to go ahead and open up my PDF and see in the PDF if there were a digital object identifier and put it in there, because if I'm using APA style, that's going to be really important. Let's go look at notes. Notes is really powerful. So I want you guys to think about how you work with articles, because we probably all work with it the same way. You find an article, you print it out. You take your highlighter, you take your pen, you read it, you write little notes to yourself, you highlight stuff, etc. And it's great. But what happens if you start talking about the article in class and you didn't bring the physical copy of the article with you and you can't remember? Or what happens if you lose that copy and you're like, no big deal, and you print out another copy and you can't remember why it was significant? One of the things that Zotero enables you to do is to go ahead and mark up the PDF, the printout, the way you do, but also then maybe sit back later that day and look at it and start thinking about converting those annotations on your PDF into notes. And there's a big advantage of this, because what you can do is you can take those cryptic things that make sense to you at the moment, and you can actually write them out in a narrative way so they make more sense. So I can have a note that is basically my synopsis of the article. I can have a note that is my critique of the article, positive and negative. I can have a note that's full of quotations that I want, or paraphrases that I want to use in my paper. So notes becomes really valuable, and notes can be edited. You might look at an article for a class as a sophomore and read it and take notes. And then you might come back and look at that article as a senior and perhaps have an entirely different view of it. So you can edit your note at any time. And you'll notice that it also gives me the option to do basic sorts of HTML here, so I can make it look kind of nice. All right, I'm just going to write a note. This is a note. That's not a very good note, but you can see again, the first 20 or so characters actually give it a title. So you want to make that title something useful to you. So I'm going to go back up to my title, and I'm going to go look at tags. Now, I told you that when we're organizing stuff, we're kind of organizing our collections, and they're usually around themes or projects. But sometimes, you need to find something, and not necessarily within the context of a particular theme or project. So what I can do is I can tag something. So let's say I've read this article, and I'm like, this article is about graphic novels, and it's about academic libraries. And it's about, let's see, what shall we say, universities. Not necessarily, but I'm just adding that in. You'll notice all of these terms now show up in my tag field. So if I want to, I can then go and I can find everything that, in this collection or in my library that's been tagged academic libraries and also has been tagged graphic novels. Let's say I were looking at an article about voter turnout in Africa. I could tag it voter turnout, I could tag it Africa, and then I could also add in tags for parliamentary systems or individual countries. So then it'd be really easy for me to find everything in my Zotero library that I've tagged with something. And here's something kind of nice. I've already created this tag called graphic novel. What happens, watch what happens if I start to, oops, didn't mean to do that. Let's just delete this one. And you can see I can delete it at any point right over here. All right, Zotero actually hasn't had a chance to do this yet because I just created it and it hasn't really indexed it yet. But once I close out my Firefox and open it up again, if I start doing another tag and I start putting in the terms for graphic novels, it's going to know what I want, so I can choose that option. So I always end up with my tag being graphic novels instead of 3 tags being graphic novels and 1 tag being graphic novels. So it gives me an element of consistency. Okay, we're going to talk about related a little bit later. So we've seen one way to get something in. If we have a PDF, we can drag it in and see if Google Scholar has it indexed, and that creates an item. If Google Scholar didn't have it indexed, I have the title from the PDF, I would copy that and I would search for it in a library database, and we'll see how to do that in just a few minutes. Let's talk about the second way to get something in. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and I have an article. And this article has a digital object identifier. And these kind of look like this. This is, and if you ever look, next time you look at, let's just minimize this. Cancel. If you ever looked at an article, you might see down at the bottom where it has all sort of the author, etc., that it has a digital object identifier. And these can be for articles, for data sets, for book chapters, for virtually anything. Okay, now that I have this digital object identifier, let's go ahead and add it into Zotero. So I'm going to go up to my little highlighter button, and I'm going to add it in. I can type it in. If I'm pasting it in like I did, I have to go old school and do Control V. Watch what happens. Oh no, I screwed up. I swear I tested that DOI. Let's see. Let's try it again. I swear I did. Ah, that's the right one. All right, let's try this again. Let's try this again. Control V. Okay. Enter. Ah, all right, this is really embarrassing because it should have worked. Because you can see there's my article right over there, but it didn't. So I'm just going to have to tell you, let's see what happens if we grab this one right here. There we are. We're just going to capture this one. So embarrassing when this sort of stuff happens. All right, I'm going to try it again. Control V. I don't know why this is happening, but I'll tell you what should have happened. When I put in that digital object identifier, what should have happened was it should have actually given me something like this, with giving me all of that data. So we're going to kind of pretend that it worked the way it was supposed to, and I don't know why it didn't. Usually this has always worked for me. I don't understand. But we're going to pretend for a second that, let's go ahead and duplicate this item, that it gave us our article. And in fact, what I'm going to do to make it a little bit easier is I'm going to push this over to our Go Cougs collection, so we're only working with one thing. Okay, so it brought me my bibliographic information, but I don't have my article. How do we get the article? So remember that link that I had you guys, I told you about putting in when we were setting up our preferences? Now we're going to see how valuable that is. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my Locate button over here, and I'm going to say, do a library lookup. Let's make our screen a little bit smaller. And that tells, see, it takes me straight to, and this would be the case even if I wasn't on the WSU campus, takes me straight to search it, and there's my article, and here's the PDF for it. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up. Now you would probably, if you're off campus, you probably have to log in with your network ID at some point, but I don't have to do that because I'm on campus. So I'm going to open up my PDF. We got to wait a second for it to open up, but eventually, there it is. There's my PDF right here. Now watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this PDF and I'm going to open it. Let's bring it over here so you guys can see it. What I really want is I want something that has kind of a PDF extension. And I'm going to take this link and I'm going to drag it over to Zotero. Let's try this again. Drag it over to Zotero. There. See what happened? There's my PDF. I have attached a PDF directly from the browser bar into this because it has a PDF extension. Isn't that kind of cool? Now, there are other ways that I could have done this as well. The other thing I could have done is I could have downloaded the PDF to my desktop, and then I could have used the paperclip to attach stored copy of file. And that would have, then I would have gone and looked for it. You know, there it is on my desktop. Let's, you know, pretend this is it, attach it, and I'm good to go. So that would be how I would do this. Pretty cool, right? So now we know two ways. If you have a PDF, drag it in. If you have a digital object identifier, copy it, and then you can use library lookup to get a copy of it. What would we have done if we didn't have a library copy of it? Well, then when I'm over here in Search It, I would have the option to log in and put in an interlibrary loan request for it. Okay, so let's talk now about how we would work with databases. So let's see. Okay, I'm going to go over here to the library homepage. Let's go over to the library homepage, and I'm going to go back over to the libraries, and I'm going to go look for a database. I'm going to go to subject and resource guides. I'm going to go to political science. And I'm going to go find, close out Zotero, which I misspelled, P-O-L-I-T-I-C-A-L, political. There we are. There's political science. Here's my databases. Here's one of my favorite political science databases, Worldwide Political Science Abstracts. So I'm going to do a search in it. Let's do voter turnout. I'm so glad the election is in 2 weeks. I really wish it were like tomorrow. Okay, so I've done voter turnout. I'm going to do my search. Okay, I said I'm going to do my search. Ah, the internet, so slow. You can see it's trying to do my search right over here. Okay, there we are. Okay, I want you all to notice something. If I go over and look over here at my Zotero icon, do you see that it's got a little folder? If I click on this folder, it's going to show me these 10 articles, and I could go ahead and add them. I could just click on this and add it. But I don't want to do that because I don't know anything about that article. It might be wrong. And as we're going to see, a lot of times you really do have to check because Zotero isn't always going to capture things correctly. So let's say I'm going to look at this one right over here. Let's see what looks good. How about voter turnout in Africa's multi-party regimes? So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the cart before the horse because I'm going to add it to Zotero before I've actually read the article. But we're going to assume that I looked at the article. It looks good. Now let's go over here to my Zotero, and you'll notice that my icon looks a little bit different. It's a page. So I'm going to click on it. Click. And you can see over here in this box, it's actually saving to the collection that I had highlighted, which was Go Cougs. So I'm going to go ahead and I always wait a second for the box to go away. I don't know why. It really doesn't matter. But I'm going to go ahead and get impatient and just say, let's go open up Zotero. And you can see there is voter turnout in Africa's multi-party regime. And you can see there's all my bibliographic data. And I'm going to check it all against the citation. Okay, Kenzie Michelle, yep. Lambright Gina, MS, that looks all good, etc. Just like looks like my title is in sentence case. Let's make it title case. It's in title case. Let's make it sentence case. I have to capitalize Africa because it's a proper noun. Just like I always want my title to be lowercase, I want my authors to have first names, not initials. So if the citation brings in initials, go ahead and open up the article or do some searching to find the full first name, because just because APA wants initials, other citation styles may want full names. So you always want to kind of think about that. So there I have all of that, and now I'm ready to actually find the article, and I'm going to do it the same way. I'm going to do this one a little bit differently. I'm going to go to Find It at WSU. And there's my article. And I'm going to show you two ways that I can download it from here. First way is to go over to the PDF, and I'm going to click the download button, and I'm going to say Save File. And in fact, I could save it on the desktop and use the paperclip to bring it in, but notice that I can also just go ahead and save it to Zotero. And in fact, if I clicked on Retrieve Metadata for PDF, what it will do is it will actually save not just the PDF, but also can make it into a record. I'm not going to do that right now because I already have a record, but I could. So I'm going to click on Save to Zotero. There it is. Now, here's a problem. In this case, it did what I wanted to. It went to Go Cougs, but sometimes it saves this in unfiled items. But now I can just go ahead to this little thing, and I can drag it over my article. There it is, and I can rename it. And there we are. We've got bibliographic data, we've got an article. So that's the third way that we can get something in. Let's look at it directly from the database, because I'm going to go back to my previous page over here. Let's see, let's go back. Let's go over here, and let's go back to Highwire Press. And I'm not looking at the well, I guess I am looking at the PDF. If I want to, I can actually, you'll see that I can actually just download it directly from here. Download. There it is, and it automatically downloaded the PDF for me. And that's because of that little thing that I clicked when I was setting up my preferences about automatically downloading PDFs. Except it's not always going to happen. For example, this is a Sage database. So the Sage database, when I downloaded it from the database, I got the bibliographic data and the PDF. But if it had been an article from a Springer journal, I'd have gotten the bibliographic information, but not the PDF, and I would have had to manually download that. Is that making sense? Okay. All right, so we kind of learned another way, basically, how to work with databases, and I kind of skipped over the whole important part about making sure that the bibliographic data is correct, but that's really important because sometimes it's not. What would we have done? Let's say we're looking at this. Let's go look at our data, and let's say, sometimes it might have actually put them all in the same field. See the difference? This is all Michelle Kunze instead of one last name and one first name. We want this to be in separate fields because citation styles, sometimes they want first name and sometimes they want last name first. So notice if it puts it all together, I can go ahead and click over here and click on switch, and then it puts it properly in last name, first name. What if it had left out a name? I can click on this little plus button here, and I can add in the third author that it accidentally looked out. So there's a lot of let's delete that now. There's a lot of customization that I can do. Okay, we're gonna go spend a couple minutes looking at Search It, and but before we do that, we'll go look at a web page. So I'm gonna just arbitrarily go to the library's web page. And I'm going to right-click on the web page. Right-click, Zotero, create web page from current item. Voila, there it is. Now, mind you, you really have to check. It didn't get much bibliographic information here, so you really probably need, web pages really does grab terrible information, but it's a start, and you can go and fill in that information. And not only did it grab the web page, I'm going to open up another tab so you guys can see this. So nothing up my sleeve. Here's the page. There's nothing on it. I'm going to double click on WSU Libraries, and look, it looks really weird because of the coding in it, but you can see this is actually saved online, and it's the library's web page, and these links all work. So if this had been a blog post or a web page that if you printed it out was like an essay that was 3 pages long or 10 pages long, Zotero would capture it. And I have this as a file, and you'll note that there is a date when it was accessed that I can't change. So that's kind of my stamp that I downloaded at that particular moment. Okay, so let's go back to the libraries, and we're going to go look at Search It. So I'm going to do my search and Search It, voter turnout, do my search. And Search It's a little bit weird, so we'll just kind of see how it works. I don't want to, remember, I don't want to do my little folder thing. What I have to do is, let's say I want this one right here, voter turnout in the United States, 1904. What I want to do is I want to right-click on this and open it in another tab. Because this basically, there is no way to kind of get to the individual article here, because, you know, it's only going to show it to me as a tab. Even if I click on, you know, show me all the details, it still kind of shows up there, and you can see it's still a folder. So by right-clicking on it, now I see it as an individual item, and I can go ahead and add it to my Zotero. There it is, voter turnout in the United States. And I'm going to check everything and make sure it's got all the information and add in anything that it might not have added. And then there I have it. Now, let's talk about another example, because the thing is that, you know the old thing about to a plumber, everything is a pipe. To Zotero, if you're in a library catalog, everything is either an article or a book. And that's a problem, because what if it's a congressional hearing, or what if it's an edited volume or something else? So we're going to go ahead and take a look at this thing right here. Let's see, no, I want a book here. Let's go find How the State Shaped the Nation. We're going to go ahead and look at this. So I'm going to open it on another tab, and I'm going to go to the details. And what we're going to do is we're going to pretend that this is not a book, monograph, where everything is written by Melanie Springer, but we're going to pretend that it is an edited volume. And she's the editor, but every chapter is written by someone else. So we're going to download it. Zotero, download. There it is. And it's even congressional hearing, thesis, dissertation, report, edited volume. It's always going to download as a book. So I have to actually tell it, no, I don't want you to download it as a book. So watch what I'm going to do. First of all, I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to say, you downloaded Melanie as the author. Let's change her to the editor, and let's get rid of this author field, which shows up and is very aggravating. All right, so that's my first thing. Now I'm going to say, you know what? I might actually cite this as a book with her as the editor. So if I'm going to cite a chapter from it, I'm going to duplicate this. This is an example of when you would duplicate. But I'm going to change it from a book to a book section, which is Zotero's word for chapter. And now look what it does. It gives me a space for my chapter title. Chapter title. Also in sentence case, which I misspelled, but we won't worry about that. There's the editor. Let's add in a tab for an author. Oh, English. Tab. Lorena. And then I go through and I'm like, pages are important. Page 12 to 67. I'm very prolific. 12 to 67. And then I save it. Ta-da! Now this is going to cite it as a chapter because it has everything it needs. The chapter title, the book title, the editor of the volume, the author of the chapter, and the page sequence of the chapter. And because edited volumes are often thematic, I might actually duplicate this and add in other chapters that might be related to what I do. So this becomes really important. You always want to make sure that it really is a book. And if it's not, be prepared to actually convert it to what it is, you know, a thesis, a congressional hearing, etc. So that's kind of handy. All right. So I've kind of given you the basics on how to add stuff into Zotero. Next session, what we're going to do is talk about getting stuff out of Zotero when you're actually writing a paper. But we can see that in addition to working with web pages and databases and library catalogs, if I were here, I'm in YouTube, I'm going to go look at a YouTube thing. If I go ahead and add this from Zotero, let's go ahead and add it.
Hello and welcome.
Oops, didn't mean to do that. Okay, I'm going to close it. Where'd it go? Let's add this. There it is. Oh, I got an error. Probably because it's still happening. Let's try it again. Save to Zotero using YouTube. Interesting. You know, these things always go wrong when you're actually doing a class, but take my word for it, you can download it from YouTube, just like I was not able to do it. Okay, so I've talked a lot at you. I just want to emphasize that I do have that Zotero library guide. If we go back to the library page, let's go back over to our library page. If I go over here to subject and resource guides, I'm going to see the Zotero guide, and I think Caitlin already kind of shared it with you. There's a lot of information here, and we do have the tab here for global connections, and here is where you can download the guide that I did, and also a couple of really basic guides having to do with using Zotero on Macs. And I have some videos that I've done. Also, you can look at Zotero's own videos and some reasons why you might want to use Zotero. So I'm going to actually go back to my PowerPoint here. And next week, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about using Zotero to get stuff out in bibliographies and citation. We're going to talk about the online version of Zotero, collaborating with Zotero groups. And I cannot help myself, but I have to actually to mention that I have done a number of these other webinars on working with databases and annotation and working with sources, and I encourage people to take a look at them, as well as all of the other things that are available through the Global Connections vault with lots of information here. So lots of information I threw at you. We have 2 minutes, but I'm ready to answer any questions y'all might have. Okay. I see that Ricky had a question about right-clicking and choosing copy-click. Yeah, you know, there are a million different ways to get things into Zotero, actually. You know, I just showed you a few. It really becomes what's the most comfortable way for you. But does anyone have any other questions? Oh, okay, it's when I was doing my ISBN. Oh, you know, that doesn't work. I'll show you this. It's the weirdest thing. If I'm in Zotero, let's go find a DOI. Let's go over here to this one here. Let's go find something that gives me a DOI. Ah, here we are. Nope, no DOI. There's no DOI there. Something here is actually going to have a digital object identifier. Let's go look at here, this one here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and copy this DOI. Copy. See how I did that? I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to do my right click and paste, and it doesn't work. I have to either type it in manually, or let's change this to see if it'll actually work for me this time, or do a Control-V. Ha, it worked that time. There's my article, and you can see it captured the title and all the basic information about it, but notice when I use the digital object identifier, there is an M instead of, I think her name was Monica or something. So I would definitely want to go get the PDF and open it and make sure that, you know, and spell her name out. All right. Anything else? If you have questions, please don't forget to, you know, my information is on the handout, and it was on my first slide, and I'm just going to go ahead and type it in here as well. English at wsu.edu, and I'm also WSU Lorena on most social media, and I'm actually really passionate about reference management software, and I really push Zotero because it's free mostly, and I really like it, but there's other alternatives out there as well, Mendeley, EndNote, Pages, RefWorks, etc. I don't care what you use. I just want people to use reference management software because we're going to really see next week how valuable it is, how putting it into it, you know, is just incredibly valuable, and it's like you're not wasting your time anymore. You know, you're actually creating this database of you that you can go back to over and over and over again. And I've worked with so many graduate students who come back to me after they've written their dissertation and they tell me everything that I told them was true. Thank you, Carrie. I'm so glad I brought Zotero into your life. It's a very cool tool. Carrie, actually, she is a Zotero stalwart now. She has been using Zotero for a while and is a convert, as most people are who start to use it. And you know, I'll be honest with you, some people start to use it and it turns out it's just not for them. So if they decide, if you do use Zotero and you discover that it's not for you, you can take everything in your Zotero library and you can migrate it over to EndNote or RefWorks or Mendeley or any one of the alternatives. You don't have to worry about Zotero being a silo. You can get your stuff out of Zotero and put it where you want it to be. Ha, yes. Carrie is a proud member of the cult of Zotero, as am I, and I hope that you all become as well, because it's really a very valuable application. And I hope to see you at our next session when we'll be talking about these other aspects of Zotero. Ah. Oh, well, see, that was kind of silly. I mean, I see your comment, Ricky. Yeah, I was being a little bit uncareful. But we saw that it actually worked when we did it the second time to get our copy of voter turnout in Africa's multi-party regime. So you saw that it does work when you actually work with the proper digital object identifier. All right. I'll try that next time. But normally it just works directly. So I don't know what happened with that glitch. Well, I guess I do know now, but you know, things happen. That's one of the things about doing these webinars, or even when I do my regular class, you know, something always goes a little bit off and I'm like, oh, I don't know why. But, you know, it's the web. Sometimes things are weird. I'm just glad that we're not doing it, you know, 2 or 3 days ago during the morning when all these websites were being hacked, because who knows whether any of this would work. So I'm going to copy this ISBN. I'm going to go over to Global Connections, Control V. There's our book. Cool, that's great. You really can get an awful lot out of using this. And I encourage you all to take a look at the Zotero at the WSU Library's website, to take a look specifically at the Global Connections tab and download the sheet that kind of gives you the link resolver that I pasted in when I was setting up the preferences, and also has some other useful information in there. Thank all of you for coming. I really appreciate it. And this webinar, I guess, it'll probably be up online pretty soon, so you'll be able to watch it over and over and over again if you want, or share it with your friends.
Excellent. Thank you for presenting, Lorena. We appreciate you sharing your knowledge about Zotero with us. And the recording will be up in approximately 2 to 3 weeks. Everyone who registered for the event, I will email you the recording once it is up online and closed captioned. And if you have any questions about Zotero, please do contact Lorena. Otherwise, we look forward to seeing you next week for application of Zotero on Wednesday, November 2nd at 6 p.m. And you can register for that at connections.wsu.edu/Zotero2, the number 2. Thank you so much. Have a great night.